So, what do you call a small angle? A cute one.
And mine is, what is a math teacher's favorite type of tree?
I don't know.
Geometry.
A geometry. That's so good.
This is now NTI day 7. Yesterday we had you review two-step equations, and today we're going to show you why we had you do that by solving two-step equations with angles. So we're going to get started.
And we're going to get started over here. We're going to have to move the document here. Okay, we're going to use a 3-step process here. Now, eventually we're going to get to this, but before we can tell the measure of anything, we have to know what x actually is. So we're going to do that first. Our first step is saying what do these have that's going to help us know how to solve for them. If we don't know anything else besides it's 4x plus 5 and x, then we're never going to be able to solve for it. But I know that this right angle shows me that they are complementary. So they add up to 90. Our second step is going to be just like you did on NTI day 5, where you create an equation to solve for it. We know these add to 90. I'm going to take what's in the first angle and place it here. And what's in the second angle and place it here. And now we have our equation, which is what we had you practice yesterday on day 6. Hopefully you're seeing how all these things connect one step at a time. We told you yesterday the very first step is always combining like terms. I can combine these because they both have the same variable, 4x and 1x. Remember there's an invisible 1 is 5x. And I bring down everything else. From there, we get rid of the thing that's not connected to the variable. This is connected, this is not. We do the opposite. Opposite of adding is subtracting. These will cancel, bring down what I have left, and solve over here. So 90 minus 5 is 85, and Ms. Bratcher is going to get our calculator for us. And in order to solve this, there's invisible math happening. So we divide to get rid of the multiplication. 85 divided by 5 is 17. Now, unfortunately, we are not done. We know x is 17, but we still have not answered our question. It's telling us to find the measure of angle ADB and BDC. If we follow these letters, they're going to create an angle. So you'll start at A, and I'm going to use a color to show you. Go to D, and then go out to B. That's your first angle that you're trying to solve. So we're going to take that we know that x is 17 and plug it back in. So 4x plus 5 is the measure of angle ADB. Now, I want to know how many degrees it is. What does it measure? We know x is really 17. And when you have two things next to each other, it represents multiplication. Grab your calculator again, and we're going to multiply 4 times 17 to get 68. And then bring down adding 5, and that will give us 73. The measure of angle ADB is 73 degrees. And we're still not done. Which is why we only gave you 3 problems to do on your own. We'll do 3 just like them with you. And Ms. Bratcher is waiting patiently to do the second example. I'm going to use this instead. We have to find B, D, C, and I just followed the letters here. This one's just X. Well, we know X equals what? 17. So the measure of angle B, D, C is 17 degrees. Back up and think about where we started. These are complementary angles, which mean they add up to 90. We can check and see if we're right. Is 73 plus 17 90? Plug it in your calculator and it will tell you, yes, it is. And so we know that we've done our math right. If it doesn't add up to 90, go back, and if you can't figure it out, email one of us, Google, chat one of us will help you.
The next type of angle is kind of the exact same thing.
Okay, hold on.
So the next type of angle is kind of the same thing that's going on, but we can obviously see already that this is not a 90-degree angle. So going back to the first thing that we might need to know, these are not complementary, they are actually supplementary. And hopefully you guys are remembering that supplementary angles, they add up to 180 degrees. The same thing's going to happen. We want to create our equation, but instead of adding them up to 90, we are going to add them up to equal 180. So I'm just pulling this information from our angles. We have 3x plus 8. And then we also have x plus 12. And again, please make sure on supplementary you're adding them to 180. The next step is I'm just going to kind of take away these lines. Remember yesterday your homework was over solving 2-step equations. And this is what we're doing here. The first step is to always combine like terms. So you can combine 3x. Remember this is an invisible 1x. So 3x plus 1x gives you 4x. This one is a little bit different than last time because there's not just a single 8 or not just a single 12. You can also combine these. They're both positive, so 8 plus 12 gives you 20. And again, just bring down your 180. From yesterday, hopefully you are seeing the inverse operations is what we're doing a lot of. You have to move the one that is not attached to your variable, which would be 20. The inverse of addition is subtraction. Again, make sure you're doing that to both sides. That cancels these. Bring down our 4x. And 180 minus 20 is 160. The opposite of multiplication is going to be dividing by 4. Again, if you need to grab your calculator, you can do that. So 160 divided by 4 gives you 40 degrees. So we've now solved for what x is, but just like we did earlier, it's not asking us that. It says find the measure of this angle here, and then of this angle here. So I'm going to color code it kind of like she did in the last one. The first one is going to be green, which is right here. So just following those letters, I have H, J, and K. So I'm trying to solve for 3x plus 8. Again, we know that x is equal to 40 because of the work that we did earlier, so I'm just going to plug it in. Remember when a number is next to a variable, you're going to multiply, and I'm going to show that with parentheses. And then you're just going to add your 8. So 3 times 40 gives us 120. And 120 plus 8 gives me 128. Now the same thing is going to happen, but I've got to do the other angle, which are these letters right here. I have H, K, and L. So this time I'm trying to solve for x plus 12. Again, we know that x is 40, so just plug it in. 40 plus 12 gives you 52. Just like Ms. Feenick did earlier, you can kind of check your answer, but this time we don't want these two angles to add up to 90 degrees. We want them to add up to 180 because we know that they're supplementary. So 128 plus 52. Again, if you want to use your calculator just to make sure, 128 plus 52 is 180. So we know we've done our math correctly. Ms. Feenick is going to do our last angle, and then we'll get started.
Teachers, at this time, Ms. Bratcher has sent you an email with your documentation form, the Google Drive, or be sure in the Google document. In the Google document for your documentation of your work hours and work days, has been forwarded to you from Ms. or shared with you from Ms. Bratcher.
We're sorry about that. Okay, we're going to get started again. These are another type of angle that we've been working with. We've seen complementary, we've seen supplementary, and these are directly across from one another. You practiced that on NTI day 4, I think, and so that reminds us that when they're directly across from each other, they create these V's, which reminds us they are vertical. So step 1, vertical, and these are equal. So instead of adding them to get something, I'm going to set 1 equal to the other. I'm going to take my first angle and plug it in on one side, and my second angle, and put it here. For step 3, I'm going to remove those lines underneath and create a 2-step equation that I can solve. The thing that we're not doing here is combining my terms because there's nothing else with an x. There's nothing else on this side that I can combine with 14. You'll also notice that this is asking subtraction, so the inverse operation is addition. Get rid of the thing that is not with the variable first. These cancel. Bring down what we haven't used. And 86 plus 14 is 100. If you need a calculator for that, no shame. Our next step is getting rid of this 10, and it's technically multiplying, so we will divide. These will cancel, and 100 divided by 10 is 10. You want to take it from here?
So just like earlier, we have to actually make sure we're answering the questions. So we're finding the measure of the two different angles again. We have angle MNO. So again, I'm just going to outline that for you in the color. So the angle we're actually trying to find is equal to 10x minus 14. We know that x is equal to 10, so we plug it in. Remember that when a variable and a number are next to each other, that represents multiplication. And then you subtract your 14. 10 times 10 is 100. And then subtract the 14. And 100 minus the 14 will give me 86 degrees. Now, this one is a little bit different because the other angle, RNP, there is really nothing to solve. It already tells us that it's 86. And a good way to check is if this angle, 86, is equal to the other angle, which should also be 86. And we've already proved that right here. So because they're both equal, we know our math is correct. And we have given you an example of all three. The first one was complementary. Remember, these add up to 90 degrees.